Welcome to Thursday's edition of TimesCast. Will the courts act before Congress to repeal Don't Ask, Don't Tell?
Except in extreme cases, not up to the president to decide whether or not he gets to defend a law or not.
Exploring the media's role in shutting down sex ads on Craigslist.
I think they came under a tremendous amount of pressure.
And as New York Fashion Week ends, we look at the highlights. John Schwartz and Jason Stallman on the latest legal wrangling over Don't Ask, Don't Tell.
John, as the national legal correspondent, you are deeply immersed in this issue of Don't Ask, Don't Tell in the military. Last week, a federal judge deemed it unconstitutional. Now where does it stand?
The log cabin Republicans who filed the case in the first place are going to be requesting an injunction to stall enforcement of the law until it works its way through the process. And in the meantime, the appeals process will go forward, and potentially Congress might act and repeal the law. The House has already repealed the law, and it awaits Senate approval of the same measure. The Senate hasn't acted yet.
The president has been on the record as saying he is opposed to the policy, but why has the administration supported it in other ways?
Well, it's up to the courts to overrule it or Congress to repeal it, but it's, except in extreme cases, not up to the president to decide whether or not he gets to defend a law or not. There are people urging the president to not defend this law. There are people urging the president to simply let this decision stand. It would be pretty tough for him to do so.
David Carr and Brian Stelter on the media's role in shutting down sex ads on Craigslist.
So, Brian, yesterday, William Powell, an executive at Craigslist, went before a House subcommittee on crime and suggested that Craigslist had not only suspended adult services ads, but was actually getting out of the business altogether. So, problem solved, right?
Maybe problem solved for Craigslist, but they also said in the testimony that these ads started going to other sites the day they started doing this, and they'll continue to go off to other sites. There's always going to be a market somewhere online, in the darkness maybe, for these adult services ads.
There's a little bit of a broader issue here in that Craigslist has argued up to this point that they're a platform that users use to upload whatever they want, including apparently sex workers. In this instance, they're more or less sort of stipulating that they're publishers and that they'll control content. Why did they make the change?
And they are shielded from much of the liability here, but I think they came under a tremendous amount of pressure from one media company in particular, CNN, which has been doing a series of reports by a brand new correspondent, Amber Leone, who really sunk her teeth into this story and has made her mark by covering time and time again these nasty ads she sees on Craigslist.
So in a way, CNN did what 40 states' attorneys generals who came out after them couldn't do and put enough pressure on them. The irony here is that Eliot Spitzer, former governor of New York, who has been on the consumer side of the sex industry, will be hosting a program at 8 o'clock on You Bet It, You Get It, that beacon of morality, CNN, 8 o'clock.
Just a few weeks from now, and maybe Craigslist and the sex ads will be his first topic of debate.
Won't that be interesting?
I'm Eric Wilson of the New York Times at Spring 2011 New York Fashion Week. Throughout the collections, we've seen a number of really interesting trends pop up, more than I've seen in a long time. Among them are a nod to the 70s, snakeskin, lots of white, and a number of designers who are really trying to dress women up again after being quiet for a couple of years during the recession. Marc Jacobs, for example, did a 1970s-inspired collection that seemed to reference the character that Jodie Foster played in the movie Taxi Driver.
What I've seen that I absolutely love was Marc Jacobs' show and Diana Furstenberg. They both tapped into a kind of eroticism that you would find in the 70s.
Meanwhile, the Malivi sisters of the label Rodarte returned to their Northern California roots and made a collection that was inspired by nature and looked fantastic.
I'm a huge fan of Rodarte. I mean, they're artists, you know? There's a lot of beautiful color. There's a lot of very simple silhouettes. I'm finding that the collections are just very well edited and not kind of overdone.
Overall, it's been a really strong season for New York. Editors and buyers are excited about the new venues in Lincoln Center, but most of all, they're thrilled about the new trends.
Join us again tomorrow for another edition of TimesCast.